Let us join. Hussein also joined.
Joining now. So
Yeah, Hussein also joined.
welcome Bala, Pandian sir, Gogul, Sendil, all our directors. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Sendil sir. Good evening, Gogul. Good
Yes, sir.
evening,
Good evening.
Hussain.
Good evening. So, I'm going to wear my meeting attendment. Beach
Ramesh sir, can we start?
Yes, Mohan. We can start, Mohan.
Relative is joining. Maybe she is having some network issue. So, Priyanka?
True. I think we have Dr. Tiago, Dr. Noel Ramesh, and Mr. Hussein and Mr. Chandra.
Morgan?
Yeah. You can
So-
start. I think we have 4 speakers already, right? You can
Yeah.
start.
So, Priyanka, you can start.
A little effort towards saving the environment.
You can switch on the video and start it.
Yes, ma, proceed.
A little effort towards saving the environment is better than no effort. The institution of green engineers are working to achieve a greener society. There are 17 sustainable development goals to achieve a green environment. The sustainable development goals are a collection of 17 interlinked global goals designed to be a blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The objective of clean and sanitation is to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water. We are focusing to achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. A warm greetings to everyone who are here to make a green and sustainable future. A small cheer and a great welcome makes any event merryful. Now, I invite Mrs. Aarti Kanagaraj ma'am and IGN member SDG ORSS Conclave G01 to deliver the welcome address. May I welcome ma'am?
Ma'am, you can unmute, ma'am. Madam, unmute. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm extremely glad to get this opportunity to address you all on this auspicious occasion of our IGEN STG conclave. I heartily welcome Dr. L. Ramesh, President of IGEN. Welcome, sir. Next, Ms. Dr. M. Akila, Secretary of IGEN. Welcome, ma'am, and I welcome all the directors of IGEN. I warmly welcome all the eminent speakers from all over the country from different walks of life. You have come here to share your knowledge and vast experience to our participants. First, I would like to welcome Dr. H.C. Tiago Soares Bedin, Senior Executive Assistant in Global Peace Letstock in UK, and also a co-founder of Knowledge Exchange Hub, Sweden. Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Janit Prabeshwar Pereira, a youth peace advocate, activist, educator, and researcher at Sri Lanka. Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Hussein Moha, Director, Investment and Economic Development Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Irshabelle State, Somalia. Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Delight Lillian Bumhira, STG Advocate, Zimbabwe. Welcome, ma'am. Next, I would like to welcome Dr. Noyer Aloysius, University of Missouri, USA. Welcome, sir. I heartily welcome Engineer Hudson Egbert, moderator of the conclave. Welcome, sir. Finally, it's my pleasure to welcome all the participants today.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your wonderful welcome speech. It was cheering and thoughtful.
Thank
Next,
you, ma'am.
Next is a person who is always happy and ready to connect with people who love their environment and is passionate in creating a greener society with the support of technological advancements. As now I invite Dr. L. Ramesh sir, the President of Institution of Green Engineers, to give the presidential address.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Thank
sir.
you. So it was very happy evening, all the speakers across the globe. And it was a very nice start for IGEN, the Institution of Green Engineers. So last 2-3 years, which we are traveling across a lot of green related activities. In that angle, we covered certain part like here 13 hours program, certain part like a 17 hours program, Nobel laureate lectures, SDG conclaves like that. So we come out with 2-3 action plan. One is the IGEN events, another IGEN SDG projects. We come out with a lot of SDG related projects also. So that is what our pioneer, our major task force, which we will work on that, because we need to work on the green related. We identified 9 goals out of 17 as the green related goals. That green related goals which we are working. So very happy that our travel across during the pandemic period, connectivity through online was fantastic, and it was very nice that we got a very good volunteer team across the globe. That is what the very beautiful thing. So even today, this program also full execution, coordination, speakers, that all complete planning and execution by our volunteers only. So the very heartfully our volunteers are working, and around 150 volunteers are there. So these 150 volunteers working together for a green society. We have a lot of members, but the volunteer are the core organizer for organizing the events. So when we had a discussion last couple of months back, so we need to do some kind of uh, discussion forum like that. We thought of some kind of discussion forum on SDG. Particularly, we can take one by one SDGs and discuss the research essence of the SDGs, so that we can able to find out some good solution for that. And maybe so that is actually the seed which is initiated for this SDG research conclave. So that is what we named it as SDG research conclave. And in the SDG research conclave, I told you SDG 3, SDG 3, 7, 8, 11, 13, like that, around 9 SDGs are there, which is working for green. So these SDGs we are taking, and this is the first SDG conclave. We are taking 6 very important SDG. So this SDG 6 today we are going to discuss in a very detailed way. And the end of the session, the concluding remark has to be taken by the IGEN activities, and the concluding action to be communicated to the UN SDG knowledge platform. Because IGEN, we already have the partnership with the UN SDG knowledge platform. So we already have partners with United Nations NGO portal. So 3-4 parts which IGEN is connected with the UN related activities. So what is the final which we are looking on? One part IGEN will work on the today outcome. Second part, IGEN will communicate the concept which we are going to come out with the action plan today to the national level, local level. It means that local Tamil Nadu government, national level, it means that Indian government, and the global level. So that is what actually which we plan. So tomorrow, any very small essence which is taken by our team has to be initiated globally. That is what our beautiful success. So keeping in that mind only, we are traveling. So people are watching across the globe, and thank you so much for all the speakers who connected through our reference, through Tiago. He has very good connectivity with us for last 1.5 years. He given us our first video for our energy saving campaign. So that initiated, so this is like here, this is called a networking. So when the Tiago started that initiative, after that had very good collaboration, Then he come out with, okay, I can make you some good speakers. He provided us the speakers. Hussain, he already through their organization, they already partner with our Energy Save campaign. So like that, the partnership and the networking, that is what the best example today, this conclave. That is what I would like to conclude. The reason is, so this Hussain and Tiago, maybe 1 year back, we had a very little connectivity. Today, it come out with a global forum connectivity through one conclave. So that is what the good thing. And so thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And so like, this is the first conclave like this. 3 months once we are planning for a conclave. So next conclave, maybe another 3 months. Every year, 4 conclave will be there. So this is our action plan. Thank you so much, and thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your fabulous talk. A heartful felicitation inspires others and motivates the receiver. Now I invite Dr. M. Akila ma'am, Secretary of IGEN, to give the felicitation address. Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen all around the world, happy to see all of you in this IGEN SDG forum. Being a secretary of IGEN, I am privileged to have an opportunity to welcome you to the participate in the IGEN SDG Research Conclave, GON SDG 06, in the theme Clean Water and Sanitation. We all know that UN SDG has made this goal and the targets have been fixed by 2030, where we like to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. By 2030, achieve access to adequate and equitable sanitation and hygiene for all, and end open defecation, paying special attention to the needs of women and girls and those in vulnerable areas. Why UN has taken such measures? We all have to think, because most of us, we live in cities and we know how comfortable we are leading a life with everything, with all the possible things we can have related to sanitation and hygiene. But 80% of the gold are suffering a lot without that the basic needs for sanitation, hygiene, important in finding out what are all the possibilities human mankind can bring about changes in the society, how we can all network together to bring the changes. And these changes, as IGEN team, we want to take it up at our level and tell the world that we are here for you to see the changes and do the changes. So this impact of this research conclave meeting will be an eye-opener to many of us to help UN SDG to achieve its goal. So I take this opportunity to thank you all for joining us in this SDG Research Conclave, and I thank all the organizers for having such a wonderful speakers among us, and I thank on the behalf of IGEN team. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was very warming. And next, it is a trending concern with an extraordinary vision for changing the thought process to give best of technology for maintaining and providing clean water and sanitation. And now I request Dr. Mohana Sundaram, sir, Director IGEN, to deliver the talk about the conclave. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. So welcome to all the participants and then all the speakers. So the outcome about your research conclave, IGEN Research Conclave 2021. So the ultimate aim of this IGEN Research Conclave is provides a platform to nurture the young minds towards the research, innovation, and entrepreneurship. So this event addresses the academic research challenges with respect to greener environment, particularly with respect to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. As our president has pointed out, this Institute of Green Engineers will be connecting the green professionals, such as the goals like 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, 12, 13, and 17. So it will addresses the problems in industries as well as to make this impact of this research conclave meeting to bring new leaders through holistic and transformable and innovatable ideas. Thereby, we are connecting all the green professionals throughout the globe. So what is the main objective of this conclave is nothing but we are planning to have a discussion to increase the universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. That is the SDG 6. And then to provide an international exposure for exchange of ideas between our international speakers and then the participants. So this plays a platform for a exchange of ideas between the connectivity between your speakers and then the participants. And then the main objective or another objective is nothing but to discuss and share the ongoing research activities towards the theme SDG 06, clean water and sanitation. And then another objective is nothing but to expand the international cooperation and capacity building support to develop countries in water and sanitation related activities and programmers. So such as like water harvesting, desalination, water efficiency, wastewater treatment, recycling and reuse technology. So with this objective, we have started the first conclave, iGen Research Conclave, with respect to the SDG 6, that is clean water and sanitation. So we are planning to, to conduct more research conclave like kind of things with respect to the SDG goals 4 and then 7, 9, 11, 12 and 17. So once again, I welcome you all for this research conclave, iGen Research Conclave 2021. So thank you. So now I invite Hudson sir to take over the session.
Hi, good morning, good evening, and to everyone around the world. I'm so delighted to moderate this event as a General Secretary of iGen. General Secretary is a, is kind of a position that, hold in important for me to just a part of this from around the world, right? I'm Hudson Egbert, and I'm myself an electrical engineer from Ottawa U in Canada. And I'm delighted to have a variety of experts like Dr. Tiago, Dr. Noel Aloysius, Janet Pereira, and Ms. Delight, and Mr. Hussein Muhammad, like all experts in all areas. I'm really delighted to welcome all of you. First, I would like to start with the ladies first. I just want to ask first item I want to on this one. I want to ask like the case studies or your projects that personally you're carrying on your life. Therefore, I'll start with Delight. Is she online now? Delight, are you there? She's just left. Okay. Anyway, then I'll go with the alphabetical order. Dr. Aloysius, Dr. Noel Aloysius, can you start with for us to explain what kind of projects you are handling in University of Missouri or your personal project that you're doing right now? Can you give us a few? Thank you.
Thank you, Hudson. Thank you for the opportunity. I will quickly go through two projects that address two different aspects of water that are related to providing safe drinking water and sanitation. The first one, I have the project with collaborators in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Ghana that deals with quantifying how much water is available to accomplish different goals. One is to improve land productivity, thereby we address food security. The second is how much water is available to increase access to safe drinking water and sanitation. Now, the key issues in that part of Central Africa, where the country Congo, DR Congo is the largest, we don't have enough information to quantify. So given the lack of data and information on various aspects of the ecosystem, how can we estimate so that we can start planning for developing water infrastructure. One of the key constraints there, the country is so big, the population is distributed all over. They are not well connected because there is no well-established transport network. So the issues are, how can we develop distributed system that are not linked like what we have in many of our areas where there are these large scale water distribution systems. That kind of things are not possible in that part of the world. So how do we address these challenges and develop solutions? The second one is in the US, in the Mississippi River Basin, which encompasses 33 US states and Canada. One of the key issues is improving water quality. There's substantial amount of agriculture and other industrial activities and urbanization that resulted in a lot of waterways that are declared as impaired. So you can readily use the water from those streams. So there are policy efforts like the SDG goals within the federal government to accomplish certain water quality targets by 2035. So if you want to accomplish, we set the goal, there are various committees set up to accomplish. One of the contributions from my group is to develop conservation plans. So we develop plans to improve how we manage our land so that the water quality in the streams can be improved. So those are two bigger issues. On one aspect, we are looking at water quantity in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On the other side, we are targeting improving water quality. Both are important in terms of providing safe drinking water and sanitation. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. You're right on that. SDG 6 goal is like you have access to the water and also quality, like, making water quality better, which is covered like 6 or 7 areas of water treatment and everything included there. Yeah, it's pretty good way to segue to start the event. Let's see if Miss Delight joined again, or she's still online. She's come. I think she's on and off, right? Okay. If she's not there, I'll go to next alphabetical order again. Sorry, but Dr. Diego Bedin, can you go ahead? Talk about your project or case studies you're doing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Hi everybody. So I recently started to work in an NGO as a co-founder. I'm not really directly working involved in the projects, but I'm working on the part of the communication, the marketing. We actually have 2 projects that we are working. There is one that we are trying to focus on the neighborhood that have a lot of people from immigrant background in Sweden. As everybody may know, Sweden have accepted a lot of refugees, and sometimes when it comes to integration is something that have a challenge. So when it comes especially with the project, the Clean Water SDG, we are not really working directly, but I think it's very important because, like Noel mentioned, in our case, we are focusing on agriculture and relating to the water, the clean water. So I mean, in Sweden, there is not like really that big of a problem when it comes to the clean water, but we are also trying to get the knowledge with the kids that we plan to do the project. We are trying to focus on girls with the immigrant background on that region. And we are trying to check with them like information when it comes to educate them with agriculture, because that's actually something that's happening, especially in the Swedish society as a whole, not just the Swedish, but also with the immigrants and everybody that come here, that everybody wants to go to the cities and nobody really take care and attention to the agriculture. So even though there is not such a problem with the water, people are not really aware about agriculture and ways to find jobs on that field, and everybody wants to work on the city. So they're having a lot of problem here when it comes to having products, agricultural products. They need to import a lot because of that. And there is also like a lot of support from the government to support agricultural projects because of this interest of people to move to cities. And when it comes especially for disadvantaged regions here and people with that kind of background, they have like skepticism when it comes to jobs on agriculture. And people also, they lack this interest to take care of water. So even though there is not a problem with water, I notice here that people, they really don't take that much of care when it comes to that. So we are trying to merge this idea to integrate this group of people that have this immigrant background, focus on growth, this aspect to bring them this perspective with agriculture, and also try to give them this perspective of managing water, especially when it comes to agriculture, because as I mentioned, not everybody is aware about that. We are also trying to do another project in Zimbabwe with albinos, and also it's focused on this part of water, because again, they are also working with agriculture. And I think, like Noel mentioned, and I believe a lot of people are going to mention here as well, that a lot of things related to clean water, it's focused on agriculture, because like we all mentioned earlier, without agriculture, there is no, I mean, it's the basic of society, right? Like for people to live in cities, they needed to have agricultural support. And for them to have agricultural support, they also needed to have the sanitization. That's something that I actually noticed, that even in some countries like Sweden, sometimes people, they don't, I mean, of course, it's very well advanced, but sometimes people don't focus on that. And also we are working with more focus in Africa, because the vast majority of my colleagues and also my co-workers, they are from Africa. So my two colleagues, they are from Zimbabwe. And yes, I think that's the two projects that we have. The one that we are doing with the people with the immigrant background that we're implementing. And the one with albinos, that's something that we are still checking, because like Noel said, and repeat, since all of us are in Sweden, even my colleagues being from Africa, that sometimes is a bit of a challenge when it comes for data, right? Because we need to get the data from the people, and that could be sometimes a challenge when it comes to implementing projects, etc., etc. When it comes to the other projects, since it's the same city that I'm located and is in Sweden, it's a bit better for us because we have a bit of more ways to manage that. So yeah, that would be the two projects that we have. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And yes, back to you, Hudson.
Okay, thanks, dear. I'm going to call your first names, guys, just to make it much easier for a moderate me. Okay, I'll Delight is here. Then Miss Delight, can you go ahead? I know you going in and out. Give us she's left. I think she left again. Okay, I'll go to next to Hussein. Again, sorry guys, I'm going with the last name for the first part only. Hussein Mohammed, can you give us a little bit of your case studies or your project you're doing on your country? It would be nice. Thank you, Mr. Hussein.
Thank you very much, everybody. My name is Hussein Mohammed Ali, and I'm from Somalia. And we're focusing on working about the SDG 6, which is to access people at clean water and sanitation and hygiene. So recently I've started working with an organization which I have established in 2019, which is called Samakap Relief and Development Organization. And basically what we're now focusing on is people to have an access of clean water, especially people living in the Bank riverine area. Why we just see, trying to focus on those people is that because people living under the water or under the riverine area, I mean the Bank riverine, they almost access water from the fetch water from the river, I mean. So what kind of water do they get is the question I want to answer. The water they get from the riverine is absolutely not sanitized. You know that because a fetal disease are almost in the river because this water in the river is between the animal and the human being. So you can understand that there is no clean water at that point. So in the case study we're doing is what kind of water do they drink that people or those people living in the Bank River? So And what we also doing is, where does they get the water? I've mentioned that they get the water from the river, which is not absolutely not clean. So as a case study, let me share my screen if it is possible. Can I please do it? To share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Please give me an access to share my screen to you.
Mohan, Dr. Mohan, can you give him access to permission to share his screen? Yeah.
Okay, no problem. It is disabled. It says that host disabled participant screen sharing. So no problem. So in Somalia, in every year, people meet drought. I mean, flash floods from the river. And this flash flood is mostly reach to the rural areas. So, and those people living outside the town, they mostly drink unsanitized water, because the water they get, people those living in the rural areas are mostly not educated. So in our case study, which we are doing now, is I wanted to shorten my talk to is people to awareness about how to clean the water and to educate them about to sanitate the water and water sanitation pills or water sanitation or water treatments. So what we're doing is helping those people living in the Bank River areas and the people far away from the outskirts of the town. So this is, I wanted to shorten my talk here. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks, Hussein. Mr. Janet Ferreira, you're next. I think the light is still in and out of, she has some issues with it. Okay, go ahead, Janet. Aiboan, how are you? Thanks for joining.
Thank you so much for this invitation. It is a great pleasure to share my thoughts and sentiments at this occasion. I think this topic, SDG number 6, clean water and sanitation, is something which is very relevant for everyone who is living in this world, because this is a very basic human need. And I believe that this is also human right, because when it comes to human beings, we have the right to be protected. And why do we elect a government? That is to provide us some sense of security. So I think today we are very rhetoric about national security. But more than national security, I think we should also think about human security, because at the end of the day, we all are human beings. And I think also Dr. Noel spoke about this earlier a bit, that is about food security and health security, which are components of human security. So myself as a peace researcher and peace educator who use research and education components or materials to bring forth activism and advocacy in Sri Lanka, as well as in different parts of the world, I have been conducting research on human security. So I would like to actually present a case study. I think this happened in 2018 and 2019, the latter part of 2018, and the earlier part of 2019, I had the opportunity to visit Anuradhapura, which is one of the historical kingdoms those days in Sri Lanka. So there I went to study about human security related issues that are faced by the residents of Anuradhapura. So there, when I went and visited schools, educational institutes, then other social and community centers, what I understood is people are facing a lot of challenges due to the lack of clean water. Especially in schools, children are unable to find access to clean water. They have to bring the water that they consume from their homes. So this is very recent as 2018 and 2019. When I went there, what they told me was they have water in the taps. In one school, I remember from like 2 meters to 2 meters, I think there are taps installed for the children to be used. But the water that comes from those taps cannot be used as drinking water. They can use it for some other purposes. And they say that the water is not clean water. And because of having, no access to clean water, this has actually become a very big problem, even for their studies, and especially when it comes to their family. I think when we interviewed some of the children, they were identified as orphans. And why were they orphans? Because their parents have died due to lung diseases, due to having no access to clean water. So we believe that even in most of the countries, including Sri Lanka, access to clean water is a real challenge. And I heard from them that every day they have to buy the clean water, bottled drinking water for their drinking and cooking necessities. So that is something very challenging, because you need to be able to purchase that water which you really need for your daily consumption. Because we know that when we also speak, if we can't drink water, our thoughts, our feelings cannot be expressed in a proper manner. We need to have some breaks to have some sips of water. But if the water that we drink is not something that you can easily access to, and you have to purchase it with difficulty, and you have to save it for the consumption, because there are lots of underprivileged families, poor families. So we went to the places where the poor people lived, or the people who live under the poverty line. And we understood that buying water for them was not something very easy to be done, because there were daily wage earners, there were people who were trying to earn their daily wage, and they had to spend it on food and water. So I think this is really challenging, because the water that comes from your tap line, if that is not safe, if you, by drinking that water, if you get diseases, I think that is something very challenging. So the human security aspect on this is something that I have researched on and worked on. And I found that when it comes to the United Nations, they are, by bringing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 to have access to clean water and sanitation. I think that is very timely. And we as citizens, we as the global community, we have a role to play in it. And we need to advocate for the government's role to be done properly, for them to really understand the importance of clean water and sanitation, and make sure that their development agenda is focused on SDG number 6. So that is one case study I actually wanted to elaborate. There are certain other things, especially when working for projects with regard to flood relief. I have worked on several projects related to flood relief. And there what I have found is our town planning has been incoherent to make sure that there is proper sanitation, there is proper drainage systems. Because of that, when there's a flood, the clean water sources will actually be polluted due to natural haphazards. So I think town planning is also something very important, but I wish I had more time to speak, but because I have to keep up with time, I think it's better to stop here, and let's have further discussion later on.
Yeah, it's thanks, Janet. It's very true. Like when you look at it, you don't have to look far away from your home. You can see the issues around you, right? You know, as you said, it's in school. Access to drinking water is very precious for growing kids. And as you said, if you don't have access to the drinking water, then the diseases and the quality of the water can't cause. Even if you look at it, even COVID-19 scenario, right? If you look at that way, if you don't monitor, like they are monitoring the number of viruses in the water of on the drainage water and all, they're measuring that in Canada, for example. They're saying from the high level of viruses in the drainage water, then from that they're determining how bad is the city is handling the COVID-19, right? Therefore, they know like numbers are low, but like so many people are not coming forward to testing themselves, because from the numbers from the sewage and drainage water, we can count the numbers of virus there is higher than what we the variety is really higher compared to the people. A number of people are getting infected. Therefore, there's just so many things that and I'll talk about it in my closure also. SDG 6, that we can say that the main reason we had this goal, this is the basic, very human right basic goal. The rest of the 16 won't do anything unless you have this SDG 6 will met, right? Rest of the goals are not even closer to us, right? Okay, Delight, I see you now. She's gone again. Delight, you there?
She's facing like having
Issues, eh? Yeah, in and out. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Thanks everyone, like for the beginning, like okay, Delight, can you speak for a few minutes? It's really hard to get you. Go ahead, Delight. You can speak about your project or anything like that. You there? Is she having? Okay. Anyway, I think she's having issues with her internet. Now we'll go to the thanks again for your own project. Actually, Dr. Noel Aloysius mentioned that, how is a quantity and quality is important, right? Delight, can you go ahead, talk, please? Yeah, having issue. Maybe you can turn off the video and talk. Maybe that get better. Yeah, your voice is really hard to. Okay. Yeah, we're having a.
Can you hear me now?
Just barely hear you. Delight, is really, really bad quality audio is coming from your side. Maybe off the, like you're off the video, I guess, right? She's dropped off. Sorry, sorry, one of the speakers having issues with. I'd like to have all the speakers to turn on their video. Therefore, like we can. I can point out Hussein and Janet, please turn on the videos, right? Then it's easy for me. Let's go to the, well, what I'm talking about is important that what Dr. Noel Ramesh Aloysius mentioned, that it's a quality versus quantity, right? It's first of all, find the quantity of the water you have. Then, and his research also said that the quality of the water is very precious for any part of the world, is very important to have the water. Then is after the quality of the water also, how you manage that. And like his research is kind of covering the whole part of the SDG 6, right? Anyway, the first question is, I'll ask you all the speakers one by one. The first question is, the biggest issue in the world right now is the access to safe and affordable drinking water, right? Any part of the world, it can be an issue. Even in Canada, even though we have the biggest 5 lakes in the world, if you look at some parts of the Canada, especially the native reserves, the access to a safe and drinking water is a problem, right? Therefore, I'll ask you each speakers to just have a little bit of question, 1 minute or two to discuss about, how we can solve these issues in certain parts of the world. Like you can talk about in your area, or you can talk about Africa or Middle East or South America, in Brazil and all, Colombia and all these countries. They probably have a water source, but access to safe and affordable drinking water is always the problem. I'll start with Janet, start with you, because since you are the last person to talk, I'm just wondering, how we can solve this access to safe and affordable drinking water, right? Go ahead, Janet.
Thank you so much. I think it's a very important question that is phrased at me, because I believe as a scholar and practitioner of international relations and human security, that access to safe and affordable drinking water is a basic human necessity, and therefore also right that every government or every state should ensure for the citizens of the respective localities and communities. Now, when it comes to human beings, we are very much dependent on water. Not only human beings, even animals are dependent on water. And I think it is the lifeline. It provides you life. Life is dependent on water. If we don't have water for continuous 1 or 2 days, I think we can't exist. So I think as governments, the governments have a very integral responsibility of providing safe and affordable drinking water for the citizens. So as I told you previously also, now there are many issues in Sri Lanka, in different parts of the world, especially in developing and underdeveloped countries. I think in developed countries also there are issues, but in developing and underdeveloped countries or third world countries, I think access to safe water at an affordable price, that is a major challenge. So I think in Asia, Africa, Middle East, and even in South America, I think there are many challenges that people face due to the lack of drinking water. And I believe when it comes to drinking water and trying to find drinking water, we need to think about the management of the resources that we already have. There are certain resources that we have. For example, we have the water ecosystem or the system of water cycle, as in now, you know that water is available in different forms. It might not be drinkable. It might not be the quality water that we all expect, but there can be methods to convert the undrinkable or unconsumable water into drinkable water. So I think the governments should definitely think about how to utilize whatever the resources that they have. Now, I think in Sri Lanka, we have a lot of, we are blessed, I think. We are blessed to have a lot of lakes. We have lots of rivers and many other water reservoirs, but they are not drinkable. So the government should focus on how to build mechanisms, resources, in order to purify these water reservoir, the water from the reservoirs into drinkable water. So this should be done on a scientific basis using the technology available and with collaboration of other countries. I think now there are many international agencies as well as countries that have the technology. So there are countries that have some form of upper hand in technology. So why can't we make sure that we have collaboration? We have certain projects that collaborate and they give us the technical know-how, the technical expertise, and even the technology that is needed so that we can consume quality water. We can consume safe and affordable water through technological innovation. And also I think innovation is very important because I think today we speak of vapor condensation. We speak of water from desert air. We speak of fresh water from the sea. We speak of potable water filters and even recycling wastewater, and also about drinkable, the book that can convert water into drinkable water. So there are many innovations that are coming up. So I think in order to solve the drinking water crisis, we need to think about innovation. Technology and innovation would be the link to create, I think.
I agree with you. Like, we have this internet revolution and technological revolutions on iPhones to handheld devices to everything micro level, like nano level. We went from micro to nano level now, but still we cannot, solve the basic need of the human. The safe drinking water is still there. That's kind of a sad to hear that. But now I think the companies are, other biggest companies are focusing on that, which is a great news for them. They're investing money with research and development, right? Therefore, it is there, but it's not enough. You're right. It's not enough to solve this problem, because according to UN, we need to solve this by 2030, but we're just 9 years away. COVID didn't help us out for the last 2 years or so, right? Therefore, it is hard for that to. Okay, I'll ask Tiago to give a 1 minute or two just to respond to the question, how we can solve this issue. Well, I think Janet covered a lot, right? I just want to give your opinion on that, please, Tiago.
Thank you. So I also wanted to make a correction when I told you that there is no problem. I mean, of course, there is also a problem in Sweden, right? Like there is no perfect country, especially when it comes to the water. The water here is around 99.94% clean. So I mean, it's definitely very great, but still there is places that they don't reach the clean water. The thing here is also that they have a lot of lakes. So when it comes to that, there is a lot of resource of water, and another resource, half of it is also groundwater that they get. So it's groundwater and lakes. When it comes to that, especially from my projects, as I mentioned, I think the most important is that we try to have like a communication among countries. For example, as I mentioned, right, and I feel I can relate to you, Hudson, because I'm from Brazil, right? I mean, even though I have the 10 passport, as I mentioned, I was born and raised in Brazil, and we have a lot of problems with water. And I'm in Sweden, so I can kind of like compare the two countries. And I think also for you, when it comes, you are from Sri Lanka and you are in Canada, you can also relate. And I think that the best option that I can see when it comes to that is that we try to have more discussions like we are doing here, so that we can bring like countries that have the best management about water to communicate with countries that doesn't have. So that's actually like a problem. I don't know, it happens also in Canada, or maybe also Noel can say when it comes to US. That could be also a question related for him later, because the problem especially that happens in Brazil due to the size of the country is that each state and each city had some policy, even when it comes to water. So I can say even for myself that when I used to live in Brazil, we had a huge problem because the tap water from cities, even neighboring cities, they could be totally different. And that's actually a very huge problem, because there's places that it's totally safe in Brazil, but also others that you cannot drink at all. And when I also live in Hungary, as I mentioned as well, and there they also have a huge problem, so they don't really recommend you to drink the water. Here I drink the tap water and I never face any problems. So I think that the biggest challenge that we try to really bring this communication among like the countries that have succeeded some extent, right? Because nobody is going to be 100%, because always there is new challenge, new adaptation that we need to come, especially with technologies. But also look at and try to bring this aspect of like sanitization, because as we also mentioned here, it's not just for the water, but also other things that relate, for example, with agriculture, right? Because if you don't have, I mean, drinking water is no problem, but if you don't have a way to manage, sorry, there is a noise. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you cannot relate also like the drinking water, for example, especially agriculture that we discussed a lot here as well. I think that's a huge problem, because I mean, water contamination is everything, right? I mean, without water, like how you're gonna have a society that manages its population safety in other ways. So yeah, I think that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Dr. Noel Aloysius. I know you talked about the quality versus quantity. Definitely you covered that. I'm just wondering, like Janet talked about having technologies to help us. Can you give us a kind of your view on like how we can, have this access to safe and affordable drinking water to reach to all the communities in each part of the world? As I said, in Canada also we have 5 lakes, freshwater lakes, but still have a problem to delivering the safe, affordable drinking water to some communities, right? Definitely that's the issue. Thanks, Noel.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the question and the comments that Janet and Tiago made. There are excellent points they made in terms of addressing some of the challenges and how we can address. Broadly, I think there are 3 ways where we need to start thinking about solving this crisis, I guess. We need to be able to compile and put together good information where different levels in a country like either in Sri Lanka or in the Congo, where we know what information is available in terms of quantifying, for example, how much water is available to cater a certain population, right? So that will help us in the decision-making process. It's a very serious issue in terms of setting up monitoring and data collection protocols in order to quantify how much is available when it comes to a lot of the countries that I work in. I have active projects now in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Ghana, and Liberia. So we are trying it, we are finding it difficult to gather the necessary information to develop a solution that based on which we can make decisions. So that is one aspect. And then the second aspect is, even if we have a solution, do we have the actual human and institutional capacity to build and sustain on the long term? Like, providing water supply, for example, the schools that Janith mentioned. Even if we come up with a solution, do we have the local level human capacity and the resources available to maintain the system so that it's available over the next 10, 15 years, beyond 2030? If we accomplish that, do we have the resources to continue, particularly human capacity, institutional capacity? And the third one is, particularly in the US, that I find, this water quality issue that I mentioned. We recognized the problem probably about 50 years ago. And then we put together the academia and the various institutions came up with solutions, implementation plans. However, when it comes to actually delivering, there is kind of a resistance or lack of enthusiasm in sincerely implementing. So we kept postponing, some certain targets that we set to improve water quality. It was set for 2015. Around that time, we couldn't even get half of what we agreed. So it shifted to 2035 now. The same way, we came up with Millennium Development Goals, and then we couldn't accomplish that. Now we are having the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. But again, the awareness now among the international communities, I don't think we can accomplish the 2030 goal because the implementation has been very slow. So these are these three aspects we got to really focus on. And in my group, in terms of addressing these issues, what I target is there are two programs that the U.S. government implements when it comes to collaborating with international partners. The U.S. Department of Agriculture provides fellowship opportunities for working professionals to come here and spend about 3 to 6 months learning from various institutions. Just travel and learn from how we manage things, and then you go back. So it's typically the collaborative activities are funded for 1 year. The collaborator comes here, learn, and then the collaborator from our side goes back to the host country and study the institution so that you could develop long-term collaborations. So these are working professionals in their early careers. So moving forward, they will be in a position to make decisions. At that time, they are trained well to make the right decisions. The second program is the Fulbright Fellowship Program, where again we bring in early career professionals for graduate studies. We train them, and then they go back and work in their home countries. So I have already worked with about 5 scholars, and then I actually have 2 different long-term plans. One is to look at water quality issues as a result of extensive mining in certain parts of West Africa. And then another is to improve irrigation management so that you can increase land productivity. So these long-term partnerships, training activities are critical in terms of maintaining sustainable solutions. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. Actually, that's clearly like what you said, a partnership with other parts of the world, especially in Africa. Hussein Mohammed, like this has come to you now, right? You know, that you see that like in this conclave, we are from different part of the world, how we handling it, like, you know, from Canada, US and Sweden and Sri Lanka perspective. But it's all focus is like, you know, that, you know, if you look at Dr. Noel Aloysius project size, specifically target in Africa, right? You know, the improvement and development, the quality and quantity of the water, right? And monitoring and getting data and all. I think it's just really important that, you know, hear from you from that part of the world. And can you go ahead, like just talk about the access to safe and affordable drinking water, right? Can you give us a few minutes, like how we can handle in your part of the world? Thanks, Hussein.
Again, thank you very much, everybody. When we're talking about how people can access a clean water, what we first need to know is to focus on stop dumping of waste materials. I mean, the chemicals. We have to stop on dumping all that things. We also need to think about to raise awareness on the best hygiene practice. We have to use what we call about the best hygiene practice. What we can also do is to protect the natural resource and avoid water pollution. If we protect the environment and if we, you know, take the responsibility to avoid water pollution, then I think people will get a high quality water. So what we also need is to restore the ecosystem or ecosystem restoration to secure access to safe water. I mean, we also need to iron impurification or iron impurifier of water, which is very, very important to have a clean water. We also need is for the purification, to purify the fields. We also need to purify and filter the water. And mostly people use our water with no purification. People use our water with no long or deep wells. You know, all that kind of problems. So what we need to have an clear access is to purify and filter. We also need to improve the sanitation facilities, especially this goes directly to the government or the state. Every state or the government must take the responsibility to improve the sanitation facilities. And we also need to give awareness to the people to have a home treatment of, you know, home treatment capabilities to treat their water. We also need people to give awareness and to give them the accessibility of having a chlorine pills or chlorine tablets. People must have the chlorine to purify their water. So when it comes to technology, we can also use the technology to a technology usability to have a sanitation and clean water to the society. What people or what the government can do is to send a weekly message through their phones to the home, to the household, and to give awareness of, you know, to give awareness to hygiene their water, at least to say, it is time to purify your wells, it is time to purify your tank, your water, or, you know, so all that things is what the government and the people should need to do. In my point of view, in my case study, what we're doing now is the most important thing is to educate the people, and to tell the impact that they should meet if they don't treat the water, if they don't avoid on doing air pollution, dumping the chemicals, and some other, you know, impacts that may, you know, make bad impact to their water. So awareness is the first thing that we just doing because our project is not much huge. So what we're doing now is that awareness message and to educate the people to have a clean water. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Hussein. Yeah, you're correct. Everybody can have access to a cell phone rather than access to the drinking water these days, right? Which is sad, but it's true. And like as you said, you can reach the people through the technology using the cell phone messages and beacon. Thanks again, Hussein. Okay, the second question, I think is a good discussion on the first. We covered a lot of areas, right? The second question is like, one of the target for SDG 6 is 3.6 is improve the water quality, wastewater treatment, and safe reuse, right? That's kind of like a long long questions, but is it improving? Like we already discussed the way to improve the water quality and water treatment and a safe reuse, right? That I just want to ask you on those 3 points, right? Because again, as Ramesh said, we had a millennium target, then 2030, maybe who knows, this 2050 target is like, reaching the green targets also keep on moving to years and years, right? But it all comes to like, awareness and then people know about it, like, that's coming along, right? But from the 20, 30 years ago, not everybody have access to internet, and now is access to internet is essential and everything, right? Therefore, the second question is that right now, how we can improve the water quality, the wastewater treatment, and safe reuse on that target 6.3. I'll start with this time. I'll start with Dr. Noel Aloysius to start with you on this question.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hudson. That's an important, so we cover 3 aspects here: water quality, wastewater treatment, and safe reuse. There are a lot of challenges as well as opportunities, right? Wastewater treatment and reuse, it enhances available quantity of water if we can adequately reuse, not necessarily for drinking water, but treated wastewater could be used for food production, for example, or livestock raising, right? Things like that. There are a lot of very good examples from South Asia where we studied when I was working for the International Water Management Institute from India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. So there are a lot of opportunities where we can recapture treated wastewater to raise a crop or raise livestock. So there are plenty of opportunities, but the challenge is now we got to make sure the treatment facilities are adequate, they are safe for reuse, because we don't want the unnecessary, there is always a chance for certain unwanted chemicals. They get deposited in livestock, either in tissues or in plants, and then we consume them. We inject them afterwards, right? So those issues we got to take care of, particularly things like mercury and all. There are instances where treated wastewater, there are high concentration of mercury and lead that again goes back into human body as a result of using things that are produced with those wastewater. Yeah. Water quality, the critical challenges to address improving water quality issues at a systems scale or at an ecosystem scale, right? So there are various uses of the landscape. We use it for food production, to build houses. There are natural areas. So how can we manage the landscape such that we improve the quality of water? Thereby, there are multiple benefits. We reduce the treatment cost, thereby limiting the amount of chemicals that we have to use. So there is always a saving in cost if we have a good quality water that we use minimum treatment. So there are multiple ways where we can address these three aspects: improving water quality, and wastewater treatment, and safe reuse. Right. So I will stop there.
Okay, thanks.
And let
Yeah,
the
it's
others.
true. Like, yeah, thanks, Noel. I'll, if you look at it, that those three are important to have. Like you, as you said, the treatment is important, and also you said the the quality of the water, right? You can have, for us, as I said, 5 freshwater lakes in the world, right? Largest freshwater lake in the, but the quality depends on the industry around it, and that we have issues there too in Canada too. Like, if we have if the 5 biggest freshwater lakes in Canada and we still have a water problem, then that's the problem, right? And some part of the world having access to lakes and rivers are even the problem, right? Therefore, definitely I agree with that. I'll go to next, Janit. Just to, on your perspective, like, give us some examples how we can improve. The one of the chats from I'm getting from one of the participants, like how the industry perspective, right? Like from the industry side of it, right? For example, in Sri Lanka, how the industries can take, very important part and take that they want to make sure that they want to part of it to improve the water quality and water treatment and safe reuse, right? They themselves, right, rather than sending the dirty water into lakes and rivers, and how they can treat, right? Can you answer, like, in that perspective in Sri Lanka or other parts of the world, please? Thank you, Jenna.
So I think that's a very interesting question, especially the commitment of the corporate sector and the industries and factories to make sure that we have clean water. I think the largest pollutants to water, right, could be considered certain factories, certain industries. I think especially, I think we all know, I would not like to state the name, but we all know who are the largest polluters to water polluters, as in not directly putting. Now there are certain companies that dump water, like wastewater, and there are like harmful chemicals into water, the waste materials into water bodies, water reservoirs. And that is, I think, something that we should tackle with the strictest laws that we have to enforce. I think the legal system should be really strong enough to tackle this. I think that's very important, because the water that we have a limited supply of water, and it is the state's integral responsibility to protect the limited resource of water that we have. And also, I think when we speak about the water pollutants, especially companies who are providing soft drinks, I think we all know the name, the soft drink producers, when they use plastic for their the ease, the comfort, we all like to have a bottle of some soft drinks, and then where do these water bottles, the plastic water bottles, go? They go to the water reservoirs, they go to the rivers, the lakes, and major pollution is there. So if you look at the ocean pollution, if you look at the marine pollution, if you look at the other inland water reservoirs, we find a lot of plastics, we see a lot of polythene, we see a lot of other harmful substances that are dumped into water. So I think we need to have the consciousness among people. We need to make awareness among people on how to use the things that they are using, to make sure that they are kind of thinking about environmental conservation, to think about the importance of clean water, because it's easy to dump all these garbage into water, but who is going to suffer ultimately? It comes back to us. I think that conscience is very important, and also the government should enforce the strictest laws possible in order to make sure that the factories, industries, that they do not pollute water and encourage more systems to recycle the wastewater, to make them into somewhat use that I think they can take out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you. like, having a local laws and local governments and even cities have their own laws to restrict all these kind of a pollution into, like, that's eliminating dumping. And like, you said right, in Chennai we have one of the used to be in 50 years ago, it's one of the flowing nice river. I don't want to say the name, but it's like, it's a dumping ground for everyone, right? But they're cleaning out, but over the last 30-40 years they're still cleaning. But it's a commitment from government, and everything is important, right? It's commitment to clean water. It's make the quality of the water is improving. It's important, especially in Chennai and other parts of India. They have the water source, but getting a quality and, like, improve the quality of the water is the problem. That's, I think, is a human right. They have to understand the human rights that here is violated, right? We talk about war and all these things, human rights, right? But I think the government, local government, even city level, right? Has to have improved their own laws and restrictions to improve the because it's good for all citizens of the city or the country or the whole world, right? Thank you. I'll go to Tiago quickly, like, your opinion from, in Sweden also you have a lot of freshwater lakes, and, you're surrounded by salt water, but you still have a lot of freshwater lakes and all, right? Just a quick quality, how you measure in Sweden handling or in other parts of the world, for example, that like having a quality, water quality, improve the water quality and the wastewater treatment. This part of that, like we in Canada, Sweden, we are like, we call it developed countries, right? But still, I think we're still lagging in certain areas. Like, can you give us like a minute or two of, your thoughts on that?
I think one thing that I noticed, and I can say that even in Brazil, Sweden, it's a problem, is about this education to handle water, right? Like a more democratization to know how to deal with water, because like Noel also mentioned, I noticed that there is like a bit of how can I describe that? People are not really giving that focus on the water. They try to focus on, for example, other environmental issues, which is also relevant. But I see that when it comes, especially with water, there is not really that much attention, and sometimes even like small things, for example, teaching kids in some specific country how to handle water, etc. I don't really see that and I can say even for Brazil or Sweden. I know that some people talk about there is not really like that really huge focus on research. And I also noticed, for example, for both countries as well, there is a lot of research on agriculture, which is nice. But when it comes, for example, the agriculture focus on the water management or sanitization on the agriculture focus on water, there's not many. So I see that there is a huge lack of this knowledge and this democratization of education for the water, making people aware that even if, especially here, there is tap water, it's clean, and as I mentioned, there is still a small percentage, so it's not 100%, but it still is good. People, they need to be conscious about, how to deal with water, which is something that I don't really see that much engagement. So I think that we need to democratize and be more aware that we can learn about water, we can learn to handle. It's not just for engineers or people that work with this field. It should be for everybody.
Agree. I think Delight, she have a good quality right now network. Delight, welcome again. Can you give us just a few minutes of your time, just to talk about improved water quality, wastewater treatment, and also safe reuse, right? Can you give us a small minute or two of explanation? Again, thanks. Sorry, I couldn't reach out to you before all these questions, and you had some problem with the internet. Go ahead, Delight. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you so much. So I think most of the stuff has been said already, but I'm really sorry for the bad network. But well, talking about Zimbabwe in particular, we have seen that in the recent years, due to things like climate change also, it's also affecting how our water is being polluted, because we talk of floods, we talk of cyclones, and some of the dirty particles end up in the water bodies that we use. So, and also the discharge of sewer and industrial effluent into the same water bodies that are our sources for water, especially in urban areas. We can talk of a case of Lake Chiwero in Zimbabwe. It's now filled with a lot of hyacinth because of pollution. So now, because of also the increase in populations, we talk of because of other disasters also that we are facing in almost the whole world. We talk of climate disasters that we are having. We talk of other natural disasters that are already occurring. This causes mass displacement. They cause destruction of essential services and wash services that we already have in place. And they also, the overcrowding also cause chaos, and the demand for these freshwater resources and other wash resources also increase. Now, by so doing, it causes conflicts. But where we want to go now is we are saying that we have to have solutions. But for developing countries now, there are some solutions that are maybe applicable to the European countries that are not applicable to the African countries. So what we will be then urge people to do is maybe have just to have a significant progress to make, because looking at the SDG, talking about the 9 years that we have that is left, it's not really enough for us to really say we have reached the Agenda 2030. But now we are saying significant progress can be made because the necessity is the mother of invention. Where there is a common will, there is a way. There's need to continue technology transfer and innovation. In the South, we can talk, it will help to improve water quality and availability. There's also need for a relook at the policy side. How is the policies that we have working? Have they been efficient? Have they been making any change? If there's need for us to change, then look into that. And also there is need for an integral approach of saying, what else can we do? We look at this water and sanitation issue as something that affects mostly the women in the African countries, because the women are the ones who mostly fetch water. They are the ones who are really affected when it comes to the unavailability of clean water and sanitation. So if it means that how effective our policies for protecting water resources from pollution, we may come up with policies that maybe punish water pollution, particularly in urban areas. But also when you look at this one of saying, let's punish the people that pollute, let's say the polluter pays principle. We are also saying that means maybe a rich person can say, I can just pollute the water because I have the money to pay for the punishment of polluting the water. So we also need to get down and say, okay, what else can we do? We can look at the rural communities. We can say maybe the women, we can have community groups, we can have community-based organizations that maybe promote women to start doing things on their own, like maybe making their sanitary way, maybe making basic sanitary things, because it takes maybe ages to build something, but to destroy it will take just seconds. If a cyclone comes, all the wash systems that we have put in place, they will all be destroyed in just a few seconds. So we need to then come up with some solutions that are sustainable on their own, because we cannot continue saying, okay, let's just give the women, let's say women, let's just give them the sanitary products that they need, sanitary items. Let's give them purified water, for example. What we need to do is to train them on how to sustain themselves, because we don't have to continuously go to areas. We don't have to say, if we are in a certain area, we are not able to help people in a different area because we don't have money. We must just say, okay, let's just give the knowledge to those people so that they know how to do things on their own, how to make, let's say, their toothbrush, those basic sanitary things, how to make soap on their own, how to make all those wash things that we need. Because once we teach them how to do this, in case of a disaster, they really know exactly what to do. And also to tell them and give them knowledge and train them on how on the things they have to do, like the first aid thing. If let's say in an event of a disaster, what do they do in terms of their wash systems? Because we need to protect, especially the girl child.
Yeah, I agree with you, Delight.
So
like, you know,
those are some of the things that we really.
Yeah, I agree with you, Delight. You're exactly right. That goes to the community level, right? It's not the country, it's not the city, is not the provincial government, or it is not the city. It comes to the community level. How you can treat your own, like you have your own agenda to like, you know, within the community to make sure that improve the quality. That's exactly, because that's the consciousness that I'm going to talk about on my closing argument. That is like the community level involvement is important to have a, like, you know, improving the water quality and the wastewater, right? Like, you know, like make sure they have a proper access to everything. I'll have a quick, Hussein, can you have a quick, like 30 seconds opinion on that, like, you know, from your side of it, Hussein, please?
Doctor, thank you very much. I think to improve the quality of water is very, very important. And water treatment and reuse is also very important. When it comes to water reuse, I think it is a method of recycling treated wastewater for the purpose to benefit it as agriculture or, you know, landscape irrigation. I mean, it is also used for housing, and it may be also very important to use as a street washing, or maybe, you know, toilet and groundwater replementing. So when it comes to the treatment of water, we say that the successful development of water depends on the close examination. The government must have a close examination of how the quality of water is. And then I've already mentioned it, there must be a treatment steps that the government are used to, the government may have to solve the water problems or water, you know, borne disease. So as already been said, also the government must take the benefit of using the technology. So as I already said, the government must use a message or phone message or cell phone message to reach the community to aware the treatment of water and to make them aware of. So the process of using treated wastewater is also non-portable urban obligation. There must be non-portable urban applicable application. So, and when it comes to technology and treatment of flow sheets, so there must be a factor limiting the implementation of water reuse because of the cost of infrastructure are needed for the conventional water reuse system. So to shorten my speech, I may say water treatment, government must have the responsibility of water treatment and the quality itself, and the reuse of the water must have the manufacturers or the infrastructures needed for the conventional water reuse system. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks again. I think I prepared 5 questions. I'm going to skip to the like a third question to just to give a get in a quick information from you all 4 of you, 5 of you, sorry. Just to the next question is like how we can, like, you know, is important to have a water resources, right? And like it's also important to have you know, water resource management as well, right? You know, you can have a big body of water, but in how we can implement the integrated water resource management, like, you know, I'm just asking like a quick question on that also, just to what steps we can you know, implement to integrated water resource management, also like some kind of examples, right? Because as I said, like, you know, in Canada we have 5 biggest lakes, but how we can implement a kind of a management, water management, resource management that I can address to all part of the community, right? I'll start with Tiago this time. Like, you know, you have a lot of fresh water in Sweden as well, right? You know, how we can, like, you know, kind of be the water resource management is important. What steps we can implement to integrate those water resources together, right? You know, can you give us like a 1 minute response to that, please?
Yes, I think that I'm gonna follow what I mentioned before, and I continue that. I think that the most important is that we try to communicate with not just professionals on the field, but we also try to bring the academia, the local community, and also international agents with that. I think the most important as well that we have like a way that we can democratize more this aspect of the water, right? So I think that everybody can learn, everybody can implement on their needs when it comes to their local community. I mean, it's very important, as I mentioned before, that, you know, we don't try to get only for countries that succeed, like I was mentioned to you, you know, for example, you are in Canada, Canada also have a good resource with water, Sweden as well. When it comes, for example, to my country, Brazil, and maybe yours in Sri Lanka, that's different. And I agree that sometimes we cannot try to implement exactly the same, but we can find ways to learn with that and try to adapt for the local real perspective, right? So I think that the most important that I see and I keep my focus is that we try to democratize the information, because I think that if people are more aware, they're gonna find better ways to manage that, right? We don't need to keep only with professionals on the field. We needed to democratize that, so that also people are aware to do their own implementation when needed, and also request the government to do that. Because when especially with water management, I see that unfortunately a lot of people, they're not really that aware of the field, especially as I mentioned here, and also I can say for my country. And I think that if we are aware also for, you know, the need of the water, that would be something that we can actually request more for our leaders and also do more for ourselves. So yeah, that's my point. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I'll go to Dr. Noel Aloysius. The next, just a quick minute or two response from you, Noel. Like,
Thank
you're
you.
still in.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, I'll be quick. So when it comes to integrated water resources management, first thing is we got to recognize there are multiple uses and multiple needs for water at a system or ecosystem level, right? There's human needs include food production, water supply, water treatment, sanitation, and disposal, as well as other ecosystem services, including, you know, erosion control or pollution control or managing natural areas. So we got to acknowledge the need for the requirement for various sectors and various services, and then make sure there is adequate water is allocated for these different sectors. So the one of the very comprehensive assessments that I would recommend that you know we can use as a guideline is the a report published by David Molden. He was the lead author, comprehensive assessment of water management in agriculture. It's a report that was compiled by over about 50 researchers. It was published in 2010. How they did, they posed 10 questions from biophysical side to policy aspects, you know, how we can manage water to improve access to water as well as improve food production. So an approach like that will clearly elicit, you know, what we need to do, where the issues are, where the opportunities are, and how we can manage it, right? So an assessment or an approach like that is very critical. So both researchers as well as decision makers should work together to develop a framework where, you know, all users get equitable access to
the
water and other land resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Noel. I'll jump to Janet quickly for your 30 seconds, just to give us a quick on your side of it, please. Thank you.
So I think when you asked me the question, I remembered a saying from a great king of Sri Lanka, King Parakramabahu, who built the Parakramabahu Samudra. He has mentioned that we should not let even a single drop of water that falls from the sky leave the earth without being utilized. So I think water is linked to our lives in economics, in politics, in culture, in social level. So I think we have a very important responsibility of connecting and managing the water resource that we have for the unlimited needs and wants that we have. So water resource management comes it's a very big role that the government has to play, actually, manage the available resources of water to make sure that the social, political, cultural aims of the country are satisfied at the end of the day. So that would be a very short
I think you're absolutely correct about having reservoirs, to save water, especially from rain and other sources, right? And saving reservoirs is the best way to save the water, and the managing the water, that's 100% sure, right? And as Ramesh mentioned, Noel mentioned that there has to be the government, the kings. If the king can do it in 1,000 years ago, how can the technological advanced government cannot manage this properly, right? The water resource. Quickly, thanks again, Janet. Hussein, you have a 30-second response to that? Hussein, you're there? No.
Okay. Thank you very much. When it comes to integrated water management, it is how water is managed. And so water scarcity is a problem when it comes to Somalia, basically. Water scarcity is a problem. So, and there is no water scarcity, there is also a problem. When there is a water scarcity, the problem is people may not have a farm production. They will not produce any crop at that season. They may not have what to eat. They may feel that hunger. So when there is no water, is that a problem? So, but what about when there is no water scarcity, when the river is full, So when water is full in Somalia, there is no proper management of water, because whenever the rainy system is started, we see that there is a flash floods happening in every year. So in that term of management, government should have managed the river. For the previous governments in Somalia, that government from 1906, government used to manage the water from the river to the lakes. There were lakes that are used to carry the water from the river and to provide it to farm production sectors. So, but in 2021, there is no that kind of management. So, and there is no one taking the responsibility to manage the water. So integrated water management is the promotion of land and related resources, as we know. So I can say that the management of this water is to have a proper planning and process to manage the water. If there is a water scarcity, there must be a plan planned by the community and the government. And if there is a much water in the river, there must be a plan or the process planned by the government and the community together. And all that process, there must be a process to manage the water. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Zane. I'll quickly, before I go to that, the next question is, I'll start with Delight, because it's her area of expertise as well. She mentioned before also. My next question is regarding sanitization and hygiene, right? Which is very important, especially now in COVID times, right? My question is this: in development country, why access to sanitization and hygiene is very important, and what are the consequences if we don't, right? If you don't follow this hygiene and sanitization process, what are the consequences we are facing? For example, you can see that in COVID-19, that we always say wash your hands, stay safe and stay healthy, we call it, right? Therefore, this question to Delight for you to why this access to sanitization and hygiene is very important, and what are the consequences if you don't know? You probably experienced that in your communities locally? Thanks. Go ahead, Delight.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So the consequences now, when you're talking about water and sanitation, we are saying the hazards associated with it. When we are defining hazards, when you're talking of when you're talking about water and sanitation, we are saying it's a dangerous phenomenon or substance or human activity or a condition. We can just say it's, that may cause loss of life, injury, or other health impacts, property damage, services. We talk of the social and economic disruption. We talk of environmental damage. So now things we are saying it's weight of things, loss of life when you don't really want right now, especially the people now. What we've been seeing, these sources that we are saying we need to have proper sanitation. We need to have the wash items in place. If we do not do that, it will lead to a lot of loss in terms of lives, in terms of properties, in terms of a lot of things. And also it will the capacity now when we're talking about the strength, the attributes and the resources, they will deplete. And in as much as we have to make with this will make us come back again and say, okay, we're planning, let's say we had some money to build a school, but being caused by it's a waterborne disease.
I think Delight, thanks. Delight, thanks. I think you mentioned, Delight, you mentioned, okay, go ahead. Delight, thanks. You mentioned before also, that waterborne diseases, and then all goes back to the sanitization and hygiene, right? You mentioned that locally building, community, toilet systems, and also the hygiene of, locally making soap and everything, which is important for hygiene side of it, right? I agree, 100% agree. And also you mentioned about the women's rights to have sanitization. Women have rights to have her own sanity. Then it's not a human right. Especially in the women's world in Africa and other parts of the developed countries, it's a woman's rights to have that access to proper sanitization and hygiene, right? Is important. I agree 100% with you. Thanks again, Delight. I'll go to Janit to respond to that, sanitization, hygiene point of view, and how important, as I said, the COVID is all important to have a proper sanitization and hygiene on the human, right? Okay, go ahead, Janit.
Thank you. I think that is a pertinent question, especially with COVID-19. We speak of hygiene, we speak of sanitization more than ever. I think we have been remembered by nature that we have to make sure that we have personal and social hygiene and sanitation. I think when it comes to human beings, in order to stop the diseases, in order to make sure that we lead a healthy lifestyle and to make sure that there is health security, hygiene and sanitization plays a very big role. So I think as governments who are entitled to, work for clean water and sanitization under SDG number 6, I think the governments have to make sure that they provide adequate facilities for people to ensure that there is sanitization and hygiene practices. So I think awareness is very important, especially education. The education system should actually make sure that the students get a good understanding about how to make sure that they have the hygiene within themselves and to adhere to the sanitation practices. So I think education plays a big role in that as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Hussein next. Quickly, Hussein, for like a 2 minutes response, minute or two response to how important for you, especially in Somalia, sanitation and hygiene is very important in those parts of the world. Can you give us a minute or two response to that question, please, Hussein?
Okay, thank you very much. Water sanitation and hygiene is very essential and important to every person's life we know. So what we now talk about is what is the challenge that we face if you do not sanitize. So, and who will take the responsibility of the community to be sanitized? So first of all, the sanitation is started from the schooling. Teachers, universities and schools must teach their students how to sanitize, how to cut their nails, to make their clothes clean. Everything started from the school. And the home is also very important for the parents to control their children to have the proper hygiene. So when we're talking about wash, and now there's the issue that affects the health and well-being of the world at all. So the risk associated if there is no adequate waste is that a parasites from urban defecation may cause for to happen something that is not good for the health. So what maybe also is possible to happen if sanitation is not controlled as it is, it may cause for person to be blindness, cholera, typhoid, and dysentery are the common causes that may affect the people if they're not being sanitized. So I urge the government to have the responsibility to hygiene their places, because when it comes to Somalia, people, at least for many people are displaced from their homes, from their residential regions because of the flash floods. When they have been displaced internally, they move it to the camps. So the houses in the camps are very near to each and every one of houses in the camps. So people don't get the proper hygiene. They have not educated to have, what kind of sanitation they need. They don't have a control. There is no MCH or health centers in the camps. So that kind of improper sanitation may cause many deaths as it happens in the world and Somalia at large. So my point of view is that to have a proper awareness message to reach the community and through the media, through the social media, through the TV, through the telephone or cell phones, to aware the people about how effective it is to have a bad sanitation. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, quickly, Tiago, just from your point of view, like you lived in Brazil, that in a certain part of the, when I fly through Sao Paulo, right, I see that like 20 million people live in Sao Paulo, but certain part of the city, within the city, you have access to all the good sanitization. But when you go to a certain part of the Sao Paulo, you have a problem, right? Just kind of give us a quick, response to that. Why this sanitization hygiene is very important, right?
I think that's actually a good question, because when it comes also with the water, that's actually the way to manage to democratize more this sense of water is a good thing, and we need to discuss is about the sanitization, of course, because when it comes to the water, especially when you look for cities, right, and pollution, if people they are aware of ways that they can clean water or manage things, that's good. One example, I don't know if it happens for the colleagues here, but in some countries, for example, they have that kind of like a machine that you put in the tap water that cleans the water, right? It warms the water. So I don't know if it happened to your country. In Brazil, also some places they do that. So there is ways that to do that. And I think that when it comes to the sanitization, the best option is that you try to really tackle policies, as we mentioned a lot and I mentioned before. And also you try to bring the sense to people that sanitization, it is education as well, that everybody needs to have it, because otherwise, we stay like ignorant of this fact, and this is very important for everything, because I mean the water that you drink, the food that comes to you also need that water, and I think that's all related to the education. I mean, if people are aware about that, that's the most important for sanitization, so that they try to check other things. So yes, I keep insisting on that. When it comes to São Paulo, as you mentioned as well, they had a huge problem with lake there. That was a huge pollution. Nowadays, I wouldn't say it's the best, but I would say that they tried really to do some implementation on that, and it's way better. So that's actually another point as well, that we needed to make our policymakers and the politicians aware about that, because when they are aware, when people really try to fight for their rights on that matter, they also make change. So there is also this political will, right? That is something that we also need to discuss. So yes, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, quickly, Dr. Noel Aloysius, just to give us a 2 minutes quick response to the why the access to sanitization is very important, and what are the we see the consequences, right? Like pandemic is the one example. Like if you don't do, can you go ahead, Noel, please?
All right, thank you. I'll be brief. I want to emphasize one point. If you look at the trend in global population, mostly people are moving to urban areas. So there's going to be a huge demand for labor in some of the sectors like agriculture and manufacturing, where we need healthy people. So good hygiene and sanitation will result in better health outcomes. So we'll have, on the long term, we'll have healthy people available in the workforce. So it's very important that as we move forward, there is going to be an increased demand for labor in labor-intensive sectors like agriculture and manufacturing. Therefore, better access to sanitation and health is important in order to have healthy people available in the workforce. Thank you.
That's true. Yeah, thanks, Noel. I just I know when we talked about the next question, I'm going to skip it because it's important, that we have provide educational and rewarding projects to the governments and entities to helping with the local government. This is very important, right? I think you all address that issue, right? You all address that, such as you and other world bodies, they should educate people on how the sanitization, hygiene, and the access to the safe and drinking water is, right? And also education about the SDG 6 itself, right? Integrated water resource management, how we can improve the hygiene for people and how we can improve the quality of the water. And it's all has to come from some certain world bodies, including some new, charities like, Bill Gates charities. They all working on different areas. But I'm going to try to close this conclave right now. But in summary, first of all, I would like to thank to all the speakers spending such a important time in their life to share with us and give their expertise on how we can resolve this whole SDG 6 point of view, right? Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And also they explain their project, personal project, what they're working on, and which is Dr. Noel Aloysius mentioned the quality and quantity of the water, which is kind of a headline, I would say, for today, right? The quality versus quantity is always you apply in accounting and engineering, but he put the really button on that. So take the quality of the water and the quantity of how we can manage that, in a different ways, and all this SDG 6 kind of covered on those two words for sure. And you can say why we start with this SDG 6, because you can have all the saving the planet and this and that and all these things you can do, have a make sure you have a green energy and this and that. But if you don't have these two basic things, right? Access to drinking water and access to drinking water and sanitization, hygiene. These are if you don't believe it or not, 1/3 of the world still doesn't have a proper sanitization. 1/3 of the population in the world, right? That's therefore you can have all of the 16 SDGs, right? But without these basic things in SDG 6, we cannot have anything else. That's why the UN make it as human rights to have access to water and the sanitization, hygiene as a basic human right, right? Therefore, I would like to end with that comment. Therefore, and also, in order to provide this to the rest of the world, that we have to involve. get involved, right? All these participants today and all the experts in we have more experts in online now. We have to get involved locally. You can see that, like what Delight said, it's come to the point to the local community level that we can improve and educate them. Then we can improve the quality. It cannot do. The government can have laws and everything, but if the community and the person don't follow that, we cannot achieve that. Therefore, get involved with the community. That's why the iGen is doing this, right? The iGen is doing this, involving our communities around the world to make sure that SDG 6 goals are met, right? Therefore, then that's important. That's why we're starting with this conclaves, series of conclaves with this SDG 6, because that's the most important SDG in UNs, and my personally, and for all of us, is a basic human right. Thanks all the speakers, and I'll hand it over to Mohan sir, and then that whoever conducting the rest of the evenings, right? Vote of thanks, and thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Action sir. It's a wonderful.
Mohan?
Your voice is a little low, right?
Hudson,
Yeah.
Hudson, we can go for question and answer session.
Yes. Okay, question and answer. Yeah. If you have any questions, like for the speakers, please go ahead. Like, is anyone? I don't.
We have the participants in YouTube. Mr. Kanagaraj, who is moderating the YouTube, having some questions, which is put forward by the YouTube viewers, and some of the questions which the core members are connected here, they will also put on some questions.
Okay.
How we can manage water to improve.
Okay. Any questions? Anyone? Any questions, Mohan sir?
Yeah, we received one question from the chat box, like what are the common problems that encounter during treatment and disposal of wastewater? That is a common question.
Does anyone want to jump in first?
Yeah.
I could quickly answer that question based on my experience so far. Some of the pollutants that affect though increase treatment costs, it's related to fertilizers and other pesticides and chemical runoff, particularly nitrates and phosphorus in water, that increases the treatment cost, or increased suspended solids. Increasingly, we are also having to deal with issues like pharmaceutical residues, because as the population moves more into urban areas, we use all sorts of chemicals. A lot of the chemicals are not regulated. However, they are harmful to human health. So those are some of the chemicals that are, like, particularly when it comes to diffuse sources of pollution that drives up the treatment costs. It's nitrates, pesticides, herbicides, things like that. So that's my take on that.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions from anyone?
One more question, how to change our capitalist system that produces profit-minded corporation without any regard for the environment?
Diego, maybe you can answer that.
Yes, I believe that the most important is that we focus on environmental ways to sustain the agriculture. I mean, it's also important, of course, we needed to have like agriculture business perspective, right? I mean, the producers, they also need to have the money, and we all live in a capitalist structure in some extent. So I think that the best way is that we try to tackle ways to make it sustainable. So in Sweden, for example, they try to support a lot and fund agriculture that use only eco-friendly projects, right? So they have like this way, and I think that the best way is that we try to focus on governments, and governments try to give funds looking directly to this perspective of giving more sustainable ways, and not just focusing for the sake of money, right? Not just making the agricultural farmers only look for the money, because that's the biggest problem. I mean, everybody needs to live, and I mean, we also want to have like a sustainable, you know, agriculture, sustainable water, etc. But we also needed to fund those people, right? And I think that money is actually a point. So I think that we need really to have this government to support people, and we try to buy more things that are ecologically friendly and, you know,
Eco-friendly,
that have
yeah,
like
yeah, that's
yes.
true.
So
Organic and eco-friendly products, right?
yes,
That's
yes,
true.
yes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I agree with you. Mohan sir, any other questions, Dr. Mohan?
That's all the common questions which will come
Okay.
from these two questions. Like,
Yeah, I think it's a great discussion. Again, I think we can keep on going. I think, right? It's a lot of to cover, right? You know, I think it's really nice. Thanks a lot again, all the speakers.
Mohan?
And sorry, Delight. Okay,
Yes.
Ramesh, sir, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Mohan, you can invite that Mohammed.
yeah. So I will invite abroad from UNICEF India.
Uh-huh.
So we are very happy to invite Mohammed. He is our one of our key volunteers. 2 years back. Now he is the member of member coordinator of UNICEF. Very recently joined, and so I request Mohammed to put his views on this SDG and discussion SDG 6. Mohammed?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, I couldn't turn on my camera. But good evening, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon to people across the world. I'm Mohammed Abrar, and I have been a part of the UNICEF India. UNICEF basically works on various SDGs. And today, on the occasion of clean water, the SDG 6, which we have been talking, I would say in India, we had always had an option. It was always just that, you know, the way people adapt to the practices has been quite a task. Because, for example, let's take a very small example for this moment. It's myself, I mean, my sir, Professor Ramesh sir, and myself. I, being under his mentorship, I have learned a lot of practices coming through his perspective. And also I was able to share my vision of, sir, this is how we could use, or this is how efficiently we could update our practices. And it was a give and take, which is really beautiful for a way of development in any kind of adaptability. Similar thing comes to clean water, because let's take an example of packaged water. I guess it was somebody from Sri Lanka who used the example of packaged water bottle. So in India, we have two options, which is you could actually access to a packaged water bottle that costs you $30. And also you could get a full water can, like 20-liter water can for the same $30. And why is our own drinking water costing us? That is quite a question to consider, especially during the climate change. I have worked with Greta Thunberg, the one who actually started Fridays for Future initiative. I have worked with Neil from Norway, who came up by telling that if they have some kind of problem that is bothering their nutrition. I have worked with Abhir from Delhi, who is saying that, you know, Abrar, we have a lot of air pollution problems, and I have personal perspectives to it. So every young people out there is connected to today's crisis. And climate action has begun because of climate crisis. It is funny that we keep naming a lot of problems and not actually working on the, you know, like very strongly working on the solution. And water is something which is precious. Of course, a person can live without water, like very hardly for like 3 days, maybe. Without food, he could actually stay for a week or so. That's how prime thing water, every drop of water is to humankind, and also flora as well as fauna, both of those categories. Because a lot of people say, when we say climate action, they say, why not we start following vegan practices? Why not we just reduce the meat consumption? That will reduce a lot of water. Guess what? Scientists have also actually said that plants do feel the pain. Plants do have the same sensation. It's just the way people take up a lot of perspectives. Again, perspectives matter. Today, I'm not here to talk more about in a detailed manner about this, because I have heard everyone's content, their words. It really inspires me every time I get to learn a new perspective from a new mind. I am here to say that no matter what, I am really proud to be here under the iGen initiative, and I'm definitely going to be give my contribution as much as I could, and would get as much as support from UNICEF as well as UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, where I am currently working as a core member, to take up various initiatives. Not only take up, but actually give the support to be consistent, because a lot of people now are taking up a lot of initiatives, but are forgetting that the existing initiatives also need to be consistent. That is how we give the efficient output. It is not that I begin with an NGO, there is you begin with another NGO. No, it is about, I see your NGO, I find, okay, your NGO is fancying my interest, and I'm gonna come there and request you or ask you that, yes, I am interested to contribute, and I will give my best. That's how we bring up a great result, work as a team, hand in hand, which is, again, the young people are trying to do that. We are getting opportunities from wonderful people like you, who have experienced the world and who are still sharing your feedbacks, your experience. I can see Hudson's are actually giving a smile. That's nice, sir. Trust me, it really inspires me, because there are people who give a lot of negative comments, but there are also people who give a lot of motivation. I was just talking to one of my friends saying that, inspiration is something, okay, but motivation is way greater than inspiration. When you motivate your friend, you and your friend become an inspiration to the third person, which is, again, team building and a step, progressing towards betterment. And I'm really glad I was given this opportunity by our Dean, sir. I studied in Dr. MGR Educational Research Institute, have been a part of the iGen Green 9 Club, and I'm honored to share my words with you guys today. Thank you so much. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharif. So is there any other questions who are joined through our Zoom link from audience, who are connected through our Zoom links? Okay. So if not so, then over to Priyanka.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine.
A grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. So, before moving further, I would like to thank everyone for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Now, I request K. Manikandan, sir, to deliver the vote of thanks. Sir, welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Good evening, one and all present here. Our most valued invited guests and honorable speakers, Dr. Thiagu, Senior Executive Assistant, Global Peace Let's Talk UK, and Mr. Janet, Youth Peace Advocate Sri Lanka, Mr. Hussein Moha, Director, Investment and Economic Development, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, then Somalia. So then Ms. Rubidzai, Climate Change Activist from Zimbabwe, Dr. Noel, University of Missouri, USA, and all the participants who connected globally through digital platform. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on behalf of iGen. I would like to express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. I extend my gratitude to our Honorable iGen President, Dr. L. Ramesh sir, General Secretary, iGen Engineer Hudson Egbert sir, and then Honorable Secretary, Dr. M. Akila, Director, Dr. K. Monasundaram, and other directors of iGen to organize a webinar even in the midst of pandemic. I congratulate all the participants for their active participation. Last but not least, I would like to thank my organizing committee members, Engineer Kanagaraj and Engineer Satish Sankaran, and the volunteers for working hard for the past months to make this webinar very successful. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by this dedicated team. Thank you everyone once again for making it as a great